Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this next lesson of our computer science subject for the O levels. Today we are going to discuss the third type of the functions, and before this lesson, in the previous lessons, we have discussed the first and second type of the functions with their details, with their example, and everything relating to that. If you still feel some help to get that, understand, consult the previous lessons. And now let's come to the third type for our topic of the functions. And for the question is we are going through is the type of the functions. Today our topic is the last type of functions, and that type is called receiving and returning functions. What is the definition of this function? Before entering into this descriptive statement, let's come first to this diagram. And this diagram or this block structure explains how this type of the function works. This is the input and this is the output. This is in and this is out from the main. What happens is there is a main, there is a function, and there is an output screen. When we start working with such functions, this code needs some data to come from the main so that it can use those inputs to run its code. If this input is not provided, the function cannot perform its execution and cannot generate the results. So input is the compulsory part. And once all the calculation has been done, the final answer goes back to the main and not goes towards the result. In the first two types, we used this path, but in this third type, this path is closed. Now, the result is returned to the main, and it is the responsibility of the main code to send the relevant information over the result screen. Therefore, the result comes in more control of the main part of the function. The result, why we use the third type? The first answer is it gives the main code more control of the result. Result can only be given by the main. The function is not able to communicate with the result. It will do the calculation and returns the answer back. Now let's come to the definition. These functions receive the input from the main in order to perform the calculations. The same thing that we explained, that it needs the inputs to perform its calculations, and the final result that is generated by the function is also sent back to the main. This arrow explains this second statement. And what is the second benefit? The benefit of the receiving and returning function is the reuse of that result inside the main. Whatever answer is given back to the main, there can be more coding inside the main that uses that calculations, or even that answer can be sent to another function to get further results. And that is only possible when we have the receiving and returning functions. We will explain it with the following examples. Let's start with a simple example and then we progress to more examples. The first example is what is the question? The question is, in the main function, receives 7 days temperature and then sum that temperature in the main, but use a function to get the average of those temperatures and then receive back the average. So if we come line to line, this is the start, and then it prints enter temperature of the 7 days, the same will be printed, and then we ask input T1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So there will be 7 inputs received from the user. Now, how we use those inputs? we sum all the temperatures and put the total into a variable that is named as total. Now we have to use a function, so we give the total to a function that is named as getAverage. If you remember, I have told you already that if the name of the function consists of two or more words, don't give any space between them, but make the first character capital for each of the words. So getAverage has G and A as capital. When this function runs, let's ignore this for next 2 minutes. We run getAverage and we send the value total. This is similar to the second type of the functions. And then this function starts working. This is the function and this is the end function. The name of the function is getAverage, and let's ignore it for the next minute or so. Function getAverage t as integer. If you ignore these two circles, it is similar to the second type of the function. You have called the function, you have given it a variable value, and when we come to the function, it has a name and it has a data type. When this total, suppose the answer is 100 in the total, when this 100 comes into this function, this total becomes t as integer. So the 100 is stored inside the t. Now the average becomes an answer that is the division of t by 7, whatever is the answer, that is stored in this variable. This is the second type. Now what is the difference as the third type? If you see this, the first difference is it is using a word as return. What is the meaning of return? This word says return the value of this variable back to the main. There will be only one return working in the function. So this return word and this average means that the answer stored in this variable should return back to the main. Now, how it will go back? This is the gate that works for incoming data. This bracket is not capable to allow any value to go back. This gate can only allow the value to enter inside. So how we can make sure that this value is returned? You have to create a separate route to return the value, and that route is outside this bracket. If I write over here as real, तो इसका मतलब ये है कि एवरेज में जो आंसर है उसको रियल करके वापस भेज दो. What is the real value? The real value always contains a fractional part. So whatever is the decimal value of the average, that will go back, and this return will pass through this place, and when you run this function, you have to place a variable in the same line and you have to use the equal sign. What is the function of this a, v, g and equal? The function is that value that is returning from the function will be stored in this variable. The 13 point something or 14 point something, whatever is the answer, when it comes back, it will be stored in the average. So this is the receiving variable. In the third type of the functions, there is always a variable with the equal sign in the same line where you run the function. When this function runs, it sends the value of total, and whatever answer comes back, it stores inside this variable. This is the overall function of the third type. So now it has the answer, and what you are doing is print average is equal to you write the name of this variable and your answer will be printed. So this is a simple example that only explains that from where the value enters into the function and the place from where the values goes out of the function and how that value coming back is stored inside the main. अगर आप इसको दूसरी तरह से भी देखें तो मैंने आपको बताया होगा क्लास में कि टोटल अपनी वैल्यू थ्रो करेगा और फंक्शन उसको कैच करके टी में स्टोर कर लेगा. अब इसी तरह फंक्शन अपना एवरेज का आंसर थ्रो करेगा और वो यहाँ से गुजर के जब इधर आएगा तो आगे से एवरेज जो है वो उसको कैच कर लेगा. दिस इज द फर्स्ट एग्जाम्पल ऑफ द receiving and returning functions. Let's come to the second example. I have already written that. If you come to this example number 2, the first thing is what is the question? And the answer is write a function that receives an input from the main and then it calculates its square and then it returns the answer back to the main. There is one more difference. I have written the function first. If I make it a block, then you will see that in our routine practice, we used to create the main first and then we write the function. But it is also allowed and it is also a common practice that you can first write the function and then you can write the main. So it makes no difference if you compare these two examples. Here the main comes first and the function comes as second. But in the second example, the function comes first and the main comes later. So they are similar. There is no technical fault or there is no technical difference. Both are fine. So if you prefer to write the function first, that's fine. Let's write the function. The name of my function is get square and it receives one value. Its data type is integer and it renames the value as a. Suppose the main function sends 3. The 3 is stored in a and now the square is calculated as 3 multiplied by 3. So the square has the answer as 9. Then you say return square. So it will return its value. This value will pass through this gate and it will become integer. In case the answer was 9.2, when it passes through this filter, it will become 9 because it says to be as integer. Now the 9 will go back. Now let's come to the main part, that is start and stop. Over here it says print, enter a value to get the square and input square. The user will give suppose 3. Now I run get square with the value. With the value means this input. So the 3 is given to the function, and what function does, I have already explained that it is now throwing us back with the value of 9. Where this 9 will go, it will come into this is equal to answer. So this 9 will float up to this and will be stored inside answer. Now this ANS has the final answer and you can use it. I use it like print square is equal to answer. So it will show that square is equal to 9. So this is the second example just to explain how this receiving and returning function works. The lines are better to be understand. This get square receives from this gate and it sends back from the adjacent area of this gate. This is called receiving and this is called returning. Now let's come to the third example, and this example will explain you how the data or the answer that is received from the main function, how it is reused by the main. I again repeat that this example will explain how we can reuse the answers that we receive from the functions. Now let's come to this coding. This is your example number 3 today. First, we have a function. The name of the function is max and it receives two inputs. The first will be named as A, the second will be named as B, and it will return one answer, and that answer that goes back is of the type integer. Now, what it does, it has two values A and B. If A is greater than B, then return A. That means it finds out the maximum of the two values and return back that value. It does not store it for its own variables, it just returns that. So if A is greater than B, then it returns A, and if it is not greater than B, then it goes into else and it returns B. This is if, this is its end if, and this is function, and this is its end function. So overall, this function receives two inputs from the main, name them as A and B, then it find out which of the two is greater, and it returns the greater back. You will see in this function the return has been used two times. It looks that it is returning two values, but the reality is it is used inside the if. So in any case, either the then will run or the else will run. So practically one return works, but by the words it has two times return. If it is true, then this return works. If it is false, then this return works. Now come to the main part. This is the start and this is the stop, and here you will see I am not going into getting the inputs from the user. I just explain the direct data. So you see over here, I call the max with the two values 3 and 4. The 3 becomes A, 4 becomes B, 3 is greater than 4, this is false, it comes over here, so it returns back 4. Now the 4 comes back and the 4 will be stored inside the S. I again use this function max with the two values 6 and 7. A becomes 6, B becomes 7. 6 is greater than 7, this is false, it will go into else and it will return 7. So when the 7 comes back, the T will store 7. Now this is the reusing line. The S and T has the two answers coming from the function. I will use them again to find the maximum of these two answers. So I use max and I send this S and T. Again, the 4 will be A and 7 will be the B. 4 is greater than 7, no, it will go into else and it will return 7. So the 7 will come back and 7 will be stored in the U now. And this 7 is the biggest of the four values. What I am going to do is I will just write the print and I will do some explanatory wording and then I will print the U and this will go into the stop. So this is an example that shows that the answers coming from the function can be reused. This S and T are the answers received from this, and we are again using that. This is the main quality of the third type of the functions, that we can reuse the answers. So I hope that these three examples will clear your concepts and make you comfortable that how the function and its three types can be used in either the pseudocodes or in the programming languages. So focus on this topic, and tomorrow inshallah we will have our new topic to recall.